gentlemen,
boys and girls,
welcome to our show,
the East meets
the West. Manatwe, Nawa.
Hinchjay, Stongo.
Hello. Hi, my name is Martin, known as Barabo here in the village.
Hello, I'm Jim Sawgrass. I'm going to be representing the tribes of the eastern United States today.
Here in my village, you'll recognize my lodge, also known as a teepee in the Lakota language, meaning home. Originally, these lodges were made of buffalo hides. Around 20 buffalo hides would be used to make a single teepee. Just like this large buffalo hide here in the background. You know, we use the buffalo for food, for shelter, you know, to clothe us, weapons and tools. You know, we even use the buffalo to fuel our fires. You know, the dry buffalo chips, we used it because, you know, there wasn't a lot of trees out there in the prairie. So that was easy enough to ignite and use as fuel for the fire. The way I'm dressed, you know, this, long ago, you know, we used the bones of an animal as armor. This would help deflect arrows along the chest part and the neck. Also, you know, against war clubs and all. You know, the cloth I wear, I'm not wearing leggings. It's pretty warm out here, so I'm wearing the cloth. You know, it's really it's breezy, so it keeps me much cooler than leggings. And of course, moccasins on my feet. So as you know, my teepee here, we're gonna come on inside, okay? Come on inside. Come on inside. Welcome to the inside of this lodge. So like I said, originally these lodges were lined with buffalo hides to make the cover. Like I said, 20 hides would make a teepee. But the introduction of canvas, you know, the trade good, you know, the lodge became lighter. And also when we started using horses, we also travel a lot faster with these teepees. So you could say we were the first. It was the first mobile home. That's right. Yeah. But with this type of housing out there in the West, you know, on the plains, as you can see, it's cone shaped, so the base is real wide. You know, so it's a good sturdy base. You leave the edge on the bottom edge open, so the winds kind of come underneath. But you also have a liner here. This liner helps push that air up. There is a hole on the top of there is an opening on the top of the lodge here where you can have, so when you have your fire in the middle here, keep yourself warm at night, all the smoke could be rushed up to the top. Basically, it acts like a chimney. So it's really aerodynamic the way it's designed and the airflow design. So I can see here, very cozy. You can close the flaps when it starts to rain, keep you dry, keep you warm at night. Perfect spot to go camping in or to live in. Let's head back outside.
Today I'd like to take you on a journey back in time to see how Native people of the eastern United States lived. Ever since I was a child, I was fascinated with the stories in my family's history, and growing up around St. Augustine, I started making it part of my life, learning about the outdoors and how people survived in history. I'm dressed from 200 years ago, in the time when my ancestors were part of the Creeks. The English called us that as we lived by the rivers, by the creeks. But the old name was Muskogees. Muskogees was a big group of Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, many other areas, even some of the Seminoles. They were the runaways of the Creeks.
I heard about those creeks.
What's that?
Up a creek without a paddle.
Oh, that's a different tribe, man. Well, in the East, our homes were very permanent. Tribes never lived in teepees in the eastern United States. East of the Mississippi River, our houses were very, very permanent. In Florida, the chickee, which is made of the palms, and all over the coastal United States, the southern United States, from South Carolina to Louisiana and Texas, the palm leaves grow. These palm leaves would be collected and they would be put in rows, and rows would be stacked on top, tied in place, no nails needed, and they could build roofs like the structure you see behind me here, a chickee. The chickees were the Seminole word for house. If you went up further into the northern United States, like into the mountains of North Carolina, where the Cherokees lived, they took bark peeled off the trees, the poplar bark, and that's what their log cabin roofs were made of. If you went further north into the Virginia country, the Powhatan people, they built yahakens. Yahakens were made with marsh reeds and marsh grasses, tied in bundles, put on the roofs, just like we would use palms. If you go to the Great Lakes, the wigwams were made of bark, the elm bark and the birch barks. If you go over to the northeastern United States, the longhouse used by tribes like the Iroquois, that was sometimes 100-foot long, made with the bark of the trees. Native houses of the East were permanent, not for moving around. Walls were often made with what's known as wattle and daub, which is weaving sticks together and then mud and clay packed on top, which dries very hard. Our structures were big enough for families, sometimes whole villages, to meet inside of. We lived in permanent dwellings in the East.
And out west, well, we used, before we traded iron pots and made it easier for cooking, what we did, we used rawhide. The rawhide is the skin of the animal. When it's dry, it's really stiff. And but what you do, you soak the rawhide and it'll become more pliable. So what we did was you dig a hole in the ground. The rawhide was really was soaked and wet, pliable, and then you made a little dome, a little pit with that rawhide, and then that became your pot. So you fill it with water, and then you could make a stew out of it. You know, we'd eat the meat of the buffalo or the elk, and you would cut it up in pieces, put it in the water, and what we do, then you take your hot rocks, which you've been heating up in the fire. You take 2 sticks. I have one with a fork in and one with not. Will help me take the rock out, and you take it out of the fire carefully. You don't want to burn yourself. And these hot rocks will start heating up the water to make a boil. So here's the demonstration of me carrying a hot rock, and it's going to start boiling the water. Hear that? Look at that. And once the water starts boiling with multiple stones, and once it starts to cool down, and then you come back in here and you'll take that rock back out and you put it back into the fire to warm it up. And so that water will start boiling, you know, and cooking those meats and incorporating all those herbs into the meat. So it'll be real flavorful stew. And you could take, what I have here is my buffalo horn ladle. Then you could, you know, eat it. Oh man, it's really good. So that was one way we did back in the early days of cooking our stews. Like I said, before we traded and traded for those iron pots. Another thing what we traded for is these iron forks. So I caught this prairie chicken. Oh, sucker was fast. Got him, but defeathered him, and now you know, I got some food. But this iron fork now, it's a lot better than the wooden forks that we use, because those burn up. But this iron fork and this stand here, you're able to hook it and it stands on its own like a little T. So you could manipulate the bird around the fire and roast it on every side, and you don't have to worry about this iron fork burning away and then burning your food. So those are the ways that we did it here in the West that differs from that guy over there in the East. Hey, and those of you who are worried about the ashes, no, that's just like salt for the food, man. It gives it flavor. It tastes really good. Okay?
This fire lay that I have is what's known now as a star fire, because the logs are just pushed in as they burn, basically making it kind of like a big star. The native people didn't chop up firewood into small pieces for stoves or for fireplaces. They had open fire pits, usually out in their village, sometimes under big huts. But they used the long logs the way they found them in the forest, the dead logs, drug them back, they pushed them in, and they created the star fire. No need to cut firewood, just push it in as it burns. A lot of the tribes would smoke the meat. As pottery became part of native culture, some of the earliest pottery, I have on the example here, going back into Florida and Georgia, thousands of years, the oldest pottery in the United States. But they started using the clay pots. But for ovens up in the north, up in the northeastern United States, slate rocks would be gathered from the rivers and river stones, and they would build rock ovens like I've built here in the center of my star fire. So when you're cooking on a rock, you want to make sure it's the right kind of rock, because some rocks can pop if they get hot. And test your rock out in the fire before you start using it someplace. But a little oil, definitely some oil. Got to have oil to cook with, or you'll burn your food. And so keep it nice and oiled. You can make little utensils for tending your fire, just like the native people would have used everything around them. This could be made from a palm leaf to pine straw, a branch of a tree, a seashell, or carved out of wood. I'm going to put some mussels on the fire. These would have been gathered from the fresh waters, and they would cook these, sometimes roasting them until they open up. But once they open up, they were safe to eat. They gathered those from the lakes. A lot of the midden sites here around Florida and all over the southeast have lots of shells from the oysters and the clams that the native people ate. And as they discarded it, it became large middens, or what we would call now as a mounds. And they are all over the place. Native people in the East were farmers. A lot of the foods they ate was foods that they grew in the garden. Things like corn, beans, squash, potatoes, pumpkins, sunflowers, strawberries, blueberries. Many foods we eat today are foods that the native people were growing in their gardens. Three of them I'd like to bring out what's called the three sisters: corn, beans, and squash. These three were actually grown in the same spot. The corn would be planted first. It allowed it a head start. As it grew, it provided a support for beans, which grow on a vine. They would be planted next. As the beans would climb up the stalk of corn, the beans would give out nutrients into the soil. And then, of course, our third sister being squash. The squash would grow on the ground, of course, putting out big leaves, giving shade to the ground, keeping the ground moist from the hot summer sun. And this was known as the Three Sisters Garden. The natives also grew lots of strawberries, sunflowers, and many other foods that we enjoy today on our table was foods thanks to the native people. Today I'm going to be cooking some of the squash here sliced up right on the rock. I'm just going to lay it there and brown it. I'll turn it a couple times to get it going there. I've also got our corn. Today I'll be cooking it right in the husk. Our corn here we've soaked it in water overnight, and that allows it to get all the moisture into it. I'm going to simply lay these right here in the ashes and maybe turn them once or twice, and that'll be about it. I'm going to let them cook there for about, maybe 15 minutes at the most. We'll just kind of have to watch them. That's the thing. Some of them I'll roast a little slower on the outside here, but as I turn these, they'll cook in their own juices. And the husk of the corn, it gives it that juice that it's needed and that flavor. You won't need salt, pepper, butter, nothing. And so this is one of the ways of cooking the corn. Today we've got a specimen here we're going to be eating. I like to call this one an angry bird. He's not real happy anymore. But we're going to cook him here by roasting him real slow. I've got him on a fork stick here. I've got another fork stick stuck in the ground. And that way I can get that bird as close to the fire as I want. I can maybe angle it like this. And as the day goes, we'll just keep turning him and let him roast. Have something heavy on the back here. And there's your rotisserie. Hey man,
Good trade.
Yeah, good trade, huh? Did the head come with it?
What?
Yeah. What you gonna do with it?
The pot.
Cooking pot?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it would make a good cooking pot. I thought you were gonna use it for riding your Harley.
Oh, it is nice and shiny.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When they arrived, they brought things we'd never seen, and it started in the East first. As Eastern tribes met the Spaniards, they brought horses, they brought metal tools, they brought guns, they brought sickness and disease, which wiped out thousands of native people within just a few years. Villages would be emptied. People's ways of life had changed. They stopped living off the land like their ancestors did. Once metal tools and cloth clothing was brought, well, that opened our eyes to a whole different way of living. Who wants to break a rock? Who wants to rub sticks together to make a fire?
That's right. Who wants to just pile all your meat in a stomach where you can use a cooking pot?
Yeah. And so the tribe started trading. So we have our trading post here. And as you see these flags, these were the flags that brought these trade goods from across the ocean.
At first, it was a native knowledge that they needed to go through our woods and trails.
And then it was the deer skins they wanted. Animal skins from here could be carried across the ocean, and they were very valuable. And that's how we got the name for money as bucks. You call your money bucks? $5?
$10?
How about $1 million? Are you a casino native?
$1 million?
Yeah, man. $1 million.
I thought they had
Let's
chips.
let's go to the trading post. Come on.
All right.
No one had ever heard that sound before until they started bringing the metal tools, and we started getting them, huh?
That's right. Check out this metal pot.
Yeah, that makes cooking a lot better.
Yeah.
Clay pots break easy. Metal pots last forever. And if they do break, you just cut it into something new, like arrowheads. What about these metal knives?
Oh, wow.
Look at this one. It's got a alligator leg bone for the handle.
Check out these tomahawks.
Yeah.
No more stone heads. It's all metal heads. You can actually chop a tree with this one.
This one's more for ceremony. What about that knife, huh?
Check out these mug. Now I don't have to scoop my hand or carve a ladle out to drink water. I have a mug for that.
There was saws, there was drills, hammers, axes. But what about these?
Nice. What kind of moccasins are those?
These are called Nike, colonial Nike. About that.
What is that?
They call this a talking horn. It's to make you look important. When you talk into it, people listen and they look at you. We didn't care. We only liked it because it was shiny. We might show up the next day wearing it in our ears or our nose. The shiny metals. It made us look good. We like those shiny things.
Speaking of shiny things,
Yeah,
check this mirror out.
the looking glass.
Mhm. I have to look good.
What for?
That's right. For the ladies.
You're kidding.
They have beads,
And bells,
trade cloth,
shiny things.
cookware.
Clothing.
Yeah, Western tribes heard the stories of what happened to you in the East. Then came along Lewis and Clark, who paved the way for the wagons to trail the prairie, and those people were looking for lands and food. And people such as Buffalo Bill hunted thousands of buffaloes, and took our food source. So people, getting land and hunting buffalo, we were at war with them. And losing our land and our food source also forced us into reservations. And trading them, those trade goods, even though trade goods made our life easier, in the long run, it was our downfall.
As native people saw the European goods coming into their lands, they accepted them, and pretty soon a lot of the old ways would be gone forever.